All right, ready? Are we doing the pledge?
Yes.
All right, let's get at it, my man.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Amen. Amen, my brother.
Good job, buddy.
Mama,
All right.
this is how you set up.
So, how's everybody doing? Good? Good week? Well, we got 18 of us. Good. Everybody have a good week?
Jim's got jokes.
What's that?
Jim's got jokes.
What do you mean? Fantastic.
You know, snowy, blowy.
Talking about Northridge, Ohio, sunny and 85, man.
Dude, I'm coming over.
Beaches. Beaches are green flagged. All right.
Bam.
Well, yeah. Hey, I saw Brad's. You even had snow on the ground, man. Almost measurable.
We got about 6 inches.
Really?
Yeah.
In Texas?
Yeah, we got hammered.
You know, I heard at some point there was 40 states getting snow from this system.
Brad, where are you at?
I am in Killeen.
I have friends that are in Denton. I don't know where that is in relation to you.
Me
But-
neither. Texas is huge.
Yeah, it's not like Rhode Island, right? But
It's counties, Rhode Island.
right,
My
no doubt.
sister lived in Killeen when her husband was in the army. That's where they had their first
Well, that's why
baby.
Brad's there.
No power, no heat, and 6 inches of snow. Same.
Right. So I forgot last week. I keep forgetting about Wayne's. Boxes fired up. Flags and furniture, right, Wayne?
Yep.
Yep. So again, if you guys haven't seen it, that flag donated by Fox's Fired Up Flag and Furniture. So anybody has any need for a wooden flag, furniture, whatever, in your clothes, just check him out. He's got a Facebook page, and I can't appreciate it enough. He also comes across some moonshine every now and then, and you might get lucky. I'm not saying
I've almost
you will.
got a couple of small flags finished too.
What that? I'm not saying you will get lucky. I'm just saying something.
So I almost got some small flags finished too.
All right, so let's get into Article 5. Does anybody have any questions on Article 1 through 4? I usually do a recap, and I forgot this week. Any questions, any concerns? Anything anybody wants to bring up? Nothing?
Tons of concerns, but well, I digress.
No, not really. I mean, that's why we're here, right? All right. Well, I guess we'll move on to Article 5 then, which is one of the most exciting articles, I think, to me. This
Hey,
is how we're
Jim,
gonna-
your audio is really horrible.
What's wrong with it?
To me.
Sure.
Let me take a look and make sure that I am my right audio here.
I'm hearing it okay too.
Oh, here, hold on. Bye. All right, how about now?
Why don't you have her mute everybody?
You know what? Yeah, mute everybody. Maybe
Mute
it might be
everybody
somebody
except for
else.
you.
All right, you guys hear me all right now?
Ah, there you go. That's good.
All right, well, I was on my, it defaulted to my built-in microphone on my computer, so I'm back on my good mic now, so maybe that was it. All right. All right, so we'll get into Article 5, which is the most exciting article, I think, in the Constitution, because this is how we can fix it if we can get enough people on board. Well, I guess we'll just get right into it. So I'll read Article 5 here, the whole thing, and then we'll go through it like we normally do. So Article 5, the Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of this Constitution, when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states, or by conventions in 3/4 thereof. as the one or the other mode of ratification may be proposed by Congress, provided that no amendment which may be made prior to the year 1808 shall in any manner affect the first and fourth clauses in the 9th section of the first article, and that no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. All right, give me 1 second here. Dang, I have a heater on down here and it's smoking now. So if I start sweating, excuse me. So let's go through it now. We'll go through it section by section. That's a lot to take in. So the very first part of this, very first clause is the amendment. There's really only one clause, but we kind of break it down. So the amendment section of this, and I'll read it one more time, is, and this is only the first part, the Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states shall call a convention for proposing amendments, which in either case shall be valid to all interests and purposes as part of this Constitution when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states or by conventions in 3/4 thereof, as the one or other mode of ratification may be proposed by Congress. So what this is saying is that there's 2 ways that we can amend the Constitution. First way is 2/3 of the House, which is 290 out of 435 representatives, and not or, but and 2/3 of the Senate, which is 67 senators out of the 100 call for an amendment. It's pretty stiff in order to get amendments through. Now, a whole bunch of amendments have been proposed, and we'll go through these here in a minute. Not very many have ever made it all the way to ratification. The other way we can do this is that 2/3 of the states, which I believe is 34 states, call for an amendment. And they can call for a constitutional convention at that point. Now, if you read it, it says, and one of the biggest words here is on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states shall call for a convention of proposing amendments. It has taken all their discretion away. This isn't a may call, this is a shall call. So if we can get 34 states on board to call for a constitutional convention, Congress has to call for the convention. I think they are allowed to dictate where the convention takes place, but they are not allowed to stop the convention. The president, nobody can stop it at that point. So Congress gets to pick how this is ratified. It can either be ratified by the state legislatures or by ratifying conventions in the states. I think all but one. I think the 21st Amendment is the only one that has not been ratified by state legislatures, where they actually held a convention. Every state held a convention and they ratified it. Basically, that's the difference between the state ratifying it and the people ratifying it. Ultimately, the state's supposed to be representing the people, but I think the 21st Amendment's the only one that was ratified by convention, which overturned the 18th, which was outlawing liquor. So the people have spoken. So since 1789, now I've seen different, when I was researching this, I've seen different numbers. The Heritage Foundation a few years ago said that there have been over 5,000 bills proposing amendments that have been introduced. I did see somewhere today that they're claiming 11,000. That seems high to me. 5,000 seems high, but I don't know. So I'm going to go with Heritage, and what they're saying is that since 1789, there's been over 5,000 bills proposing amendments introduced. Of those, only 33 have been sent to the states for ratification. So out of 5,000, only 33 made it through the process and got to the states. Of those, 27 were ratified, 2 were defeated, And there's actually 4 that are still pending to this day because there was no expiration on them. Those 4 are Titles of Nobility Amendment, which sought to strip citizenship from any citizen that accepted a title of nobility from a foreign government. And that was in 1810. That was leading right into the Second War with Great Britain, which is probably why it got brought up. We're going into the War of 1812 at that point. That was never, and I don't remember how many states ratified it, but they did not get enough, and there's no expiration on it, so it's still floating around out there. We've got the Corwin Amendment, who was a congressman from Ohio. So he sought to stop the federal government from ending slavery in an attempt to head off the South seceding. That was in 1861. Problem is that it got in too late and it didn't have the desired effect, which probably for the best anyway. We took care of the slavery problem, but there's no expiration on this. So technically it is still out there and it's still pending. Got Child Labor Amendment, 1973, which sought to give Congress the power to regulate child labor for those under 18 years of age. But because of the amount of labor laws that came out, Fair Labor Standard Act and such, it kind of became a moot point. Still floating around out there and has not expired. And the last one, I had trouble. I found a whole lot of places that told me about these 3. I had trouble finding the 4th one. And it appears that the 4th one was actually in 1790, which is still out there floating around, which was Article 1 to the Bill of Rights, which sought to establish representation by not allowing representatives to drop below achieved level. So if you hit 100 reps, then it could never drop below 100 representatives. Once you hit 200, it could never drop below 200. However, had this stood, and we talked about this before, right now we'd have over 6,000 representatives if this had gone through. But there's no expiration on it and it's still out there. Now, none of these have a chance at getting through, obviously. I mean, titles of nobility, whatever. Although I guess that's a big deal, right? You got people that are given honorary titles. I guess you could lose your citizenship for that then, but none of these really have a chance to get through. I'll stop now. Anybody got anything before we move too far on?
This article might be the longest sentence in the history of sentences.
Which one?
The whole article. It's one sentence.
Oh, it is. Well, there's semicolons. I mean, we split it up a little bit and some of it's been taken out. So it gets a little confusing. It is long though. And I mean, you're talking about 2/3 and 3/4 and it gets confusing for sure. Dave, you got anything?
So,
What was
I-
it you got defeated?
What's that?
You know what 2 amendments were defeated?
You know what? One was I don't know if it was defeated. Equal Rights Amendment did not get enough. And that one had an expiration on it back in I want to say early 80s. And I think that was counted as a defeat. I'll have to look. I don't remember what the second one was. I did read up on both of them. What I find
when you
more,
say that-
what's that?
I'm sorry, when you said that 4 are still pending, do they actually write an expiration date in the amendment that they propose?
A lot of them
And
do.
these
If they're
don't?
not, if they are not ratified by such and such a date, then it expires and they got to go through the whole system again.
Okay,
But some of these did not have that expiration date in there, and therefore, even though they didn't get ratified, they're still out there. So I guess somebody could start working right now to try to get the titles of nobility passed if they wanted to, but good luck. I mean, we can't, or slavery. And that guy was from Ohio, so there's their dark history. So the ones that are still pending are interesting. However, there are a few here that are amazing that they were even proposed in the first place. And they were promptly shot down, never made it out of the halls of Congress. So I got a list here of just a few of them. Obviously, there's 5,000 or so that didn't make it out. So in 1876, they actually, somebody actually came up with an attempt to abolish the United States Senate through an amendment, which looking back on it now, okay, so we'll move on. 1876, the forbidding of religious leaders from occupying a governmental office or receiving federal funding. 1878, they decided that an executive council of 3 should replace the office of the president. Never made it out. These are all true. Some of these you're not going to believe me. Some of these you're going to call bullshit. And I don't know how I can prove them to you, but these are all apparently true from constitutionfacts.com. 1893, they wanted to rename the nation the United States of the Earth. It sounds like something like our Congress would be doing right now.
What year was that?
Yeah, that was 1893. 1893.
I'm surprised it's so long, that happened way back then instead of 1993.
Yeah, that's some hippie stuff right there, or in the 70s. In the 70s, I could. So 1893 also, Brad, somebody had brought forth a constitutional amendment to abolish the United States Army and Navy. 1894, acknowledging that the Constitution recognizes God and Jesus Christ as the supreme authorities in human affairs. So that was shot down, which is kind of interesting to me because we were a lot more Christian of a nation back then, but powers to be thought that was a horrible idea. 1912.
Well, Jim, you also had the separation of church and state, so you can't.
Well, there is no separation, but there's no separation of church and state in the Constitution.
But if you're trying to name Christianity as the basis for the country, sure you are.
I don't know. You recognize God. Everybody prays to a God, right? We're not saying you have to pray to a Catholic God.
No, everybody doesn't pray to a God.
Well, then who?
Well, I mean, part of the reason why we split off from England was because of religion and the affiliation with the Church of England. So it makes sense to me that they would want to make sure that the reason they wouldn't pass it was because it would.
Yeah, I guess actually reading this now, though, Jesus Christ is probably the big sticking point there. I don't know if God, everybody who doesn't pray to, Allah's a God, right? Who doesn't, we're not saying that you got to pray to
atheists don't believe in God.
Well, but I guess that's a conversation then, right? Because we still, we've still got in God we trust in just about everything.
I don't know if the main religion in India is still polytheist, but they had like multiple gods there.
But there are still gods nonetheless. I think, I don't know. I've always thought God to be kind of a generic term. I think God is just kind of whoever you pray to, right?
I agree with that. But not everybody.
Jesus Christ is a different thing, right?
Right.
Jesus Christ is definitely.
Right, because he's the son of God.
Sure. Well, and the Muslims don't, they don't pray to Jesus Christ. Hindus don't pray to Jesus Christ. So I could see where Jesus Christ is a big problem. So it's just, All right. So 1912, constitutional amendment to make marriages between races illegal. That was 1912. And that was shot down. Didn't even make it out of Congress. So, that was before the whole civil rights movement. Things were still pretty heated back then.
Or is that talking federal law, or because it was at one time?
No, this is constitutional amendments.
So
they
that's
wanted
what
to
I'm
put
saying.
that in the Constitution.
Okay, because there were laws against interracial marriages.
Sure.
Yeah.
1914. What's that?
They were state laws. It was state to state.
It was. 1914, finding divorce to be illegal. Shit. In the Constitution. 1916, all acts of war should be put to a national vote. Anyone voting yes. Shit, I didn't even read this. I didn't read this thing all the way through. This actually isn't, well, no, this, I don't know. So 1916, all acts of war should be put to a national vote. Anyone voting yes had to register as a volunteer for service in the United States Army. Shit.
I love it.
Holy, we'd never go to war again.
We'd never go to war.
Put your money where your mouth is, huh?
I guess. I want to know
How long it would take us?
We would
go to war once.
God dang, man.
You
and that's
better be ready to
1916.
back that up, huh?
Now we're talking about World War I here. Holy smokes. I'd like to know who brought that up. I want to meet this guy.
Probably a German.
You know what, though? That could really go either way, right? That could be a hard charging conservative, or it could be a liberal. It could be a liberal saying, look, you want to go to war? Fine, but you got to go to war. I'm not going. I
Right.
don't know. I'd like to know who brought that up. 1933, an attempt to limit personal wealth to $1 million. It's a little socialist going into the Constitution there. 1936, an attempt to allow the American people to vote on whether or not the United States should go to war. So they tried it again in 36. So leading into World War I, they wanted it to a national vote. Leading into World War II, they wanted it back to a national vote.
Did they take off if you vote, you gotta serve?
They did. Yeah. 1936 is just an attempt to allow the American people to vote on whether or not the United States should go to war.
You know what that does? That relieves them of any guilt. You know what I mean? Of going to war.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
put it up to a popular vote, and well, you
Yeah.
guys picked it. You know,
Yeah. Hey, we don't want to do this.
right?
All
We
you
don't want to.
people- all you people that aren't smart enough to govern yourselves, you're the ones that did this, not us. We
Right.
said this is a horrible idea. Right.
Yep.
1938, the forbidding of drunkenness in the forbidding of drunkenness in the United States and all of its territories.
Wow. What?
Everywhere? Everywhere, Jim, even your backyard at your fire pit?
Backyard.
No chance of passing in America whatsoever.
Every Tuesday. So here's the deal, though. I mean, look at so this is 1938, the forbidding of drunkenness. So clearly people were still pissed off about the 21st Amendment, right? Because liquor was abolished in 1919. 1933, it was repealed by the 21st Amendment. In 1938, they said, okay, you can have your liquor, but you're not allowed to be drunk. Dang.
So it looks like that was proposed by the introducer of the 18th Amendment, originally banning alcoholic beverages. So
Good for that guy. Look at him.
My liver, my choice.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
How the hell was he not voted up after
Right,
he
David.
tried to do it the first time?
God dang, man.
Did they quantify the drunkenness? I mean, is there a blood alcohol number there?
Not that.
Well, and you say, how did he not get voted out the first time? But not only did he not get voted out, it actually made it to the Constitution the first time.
All right.
You know what I mean? So it got ratified by 3/4 of the states.
That's who you
Crazy.
know.
Hey, Renee, look up that one in 1916 for me, because I want to know who that was.
1960.
About the national vote.
I have it up.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I was just getting ready to talk on it. So it was sent by a group of Nebraska residents in 1916. Doesn't say the name of the actual person, but it looks like it was sent up by the state of Nebraska, apparently, is kind of what I'm reading.
Well, how can one state just send it up? Somebody had to propose it on the floor.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Had to be their representative of Nebraska, right? Either a senator or a representative.
Right. You would think.
Yeah, sent to Washington by a group of Nebraska residents. That's what I'm seeing. So it got,
Sounds to me like you need to refine your Google foo.
All right. 40. We only got 3 more here. 1947. The income tax maximum for an individual should not exceed 25%. So in 47, they're talking about flat taxes. I guess it's not really flat, right? They're at least trying to cap it. 25% though. What are we paying now? Where are we? We're not even close to that. Are we?
feels like 95%.
Shit,
Depends on what taxes they're talking about. They're talking about
income.
We're about the 22, but it depends on your income level.
Man, I'm not opposed to that again. I'm all about flat taxes. Rand Paul, man, he's got the 10% across the board. I'm all about that. 1948, the right of citizens to segregate themselves from others.
Like
So I guess-
a commune?
Well, I don't know, man. I mean, when you hear segregate, you know where your mind goes. I just wonder if Although in 48, civil rights hadn't really fired up yet. So I don't know what that's actually kind of interesting. I wonder where that was. Somebody look that one up. I'd like to know what the thinking was behind that.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. That's kind of weird and
Go
early.
to another site.
It is. It's way early for the civil
Yeah.
rights movement.
Yeah, I would not expect it then.
And the last one that they have listed here is that the American citizens, this is from the 70s, 1971. American citizens should have the alienable right to an environment free of pollution.
When was that?
American citizens should have the alienable right.
No, what year?
Oh, 71.
Wow.
So constitutionally, we should be free of pollution, which I don't know. Can't deny. I can't argue that. Utopia.
Where'd that one come from? Los Angeles?
I don't know. I don't know where any of them came from. It's just listed like the.
Why would you have something like that you can't control? I mean, yeah, we can try to make our country better, but until, India and China and all these other countries get better at it, the atmosphere is all over. It's not just in your country.
And India and China are the two biggest polluters, for sure. But that makes me.
The no peeing section in the pool.
It makes you, yeah, right. It makes you think, though. I mean, we were talking about 5 or 10,000, depending on what number you believe. There's got to be every year. There has to be all these constitutional amendments that are brought to the floor that you never hear of. Just crazy. I mean, I wonder. Maybe I need to start paying more attention to what's brought to the floor because most of this stuff you look at and you're like, whatever, stupid.
You got to wonder how many times somebody has presented term limits.
Oh, they have. Well,
Cruz has a couple.
Cruz does it almost every time.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of them we don't even know about. I mean,
right. Well, look at all
you
these
have to go and look for them.
These crazy ones. The media is not going to pick them up. Nobody's going to talk about them. They get to the floor, they die on the floor, probably within a day or two.
No, the government should come up with some way, especially with computers, that they could have someplace they posted everything that ever brought to the floor.
Oh, they do. They do.
You can go sit and look on your computer.
Yeah, but they're not going to advertise it because they don't want half the things that get introduced to be known publicly.
Right. Sure.
Because if we all knew about them, then we'd be like, oh yeah, we're behind this.
Like when you're capping an income tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last thing you want is for the country to know that somebody brought up capping the income tax and everybody's like, hey, wait a minute.
Well, and I use government websites a lot for my job, and they're like the least user-friendly sites to find things on.
Hey, government, man, we're here to help.
That is not by mistake.
I know. So, you really have to be diligent if you're trying to find something.
I signed up 3 times for the shot today. I had to cancel 2 of them.
Yep, government's here to help. Just remember that. They're always here to help you.
I appreciate your tax dollars. I'm just saying.
I appreciate my local tax dollars. I'm just, all right. Anything else? Any questions on that? No way on the amendments, how we're going to get them through. All right. So, and we talked about ratification, right? You guys understand the ratification, state legislatures and ratifying conventions. And that's if Congress does it.
The ratification is 3/4, so isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's a higher standard. So 34 states can get together for the convention and we can propose the amendments, but it'll take 38 states to ratify.
Right.
And we'll talk about this as we get a little further here. All right, so the prohibition on amendment. Now, this is the part that was taken out. I'll read it real quick. So provided that no amendment which may be made prior to the year 1808, shall in any manner affect the first and fourth clauses in the 9th section of the first article. So if you remember when we talked about this, I don't need to read it to you again, but this is, you remember when we were talking about 3/5 of a person with slavery and how, so they wanted to ban international slave trade, but there was a big pushback on it, right? Because all these slave owners at that time had a lot of money invested in these slaves and they wanted to get their money back. So the federal government said, all right, fine, we'll give you until 1808. That was, I think, 20 years to get their money back out of their slaves. In 1808, that's when all the the international slave trade took effect. So that is what they're referring back to here. This is saying that no amendment can be made prior to the year 1808, which is going to affect that. It was just another fail-safe for slave owners, I guess. From Annenberg Classroom, the article also forbids 3 specific amendments that would deny a state its votes in Senate. We're going to talk about that one. That before 1808 would enable Congress to prohibit the importation of slaves, and that before 1808 would allow direct taxation except as based on the system of enumeration set out in Article 1, Section 2. As a result, the 3/5 compromise contained in Article 1, Section 9 remained in place until 1808 when Congress banned the international slave trade. So this whole thing is moot now. It's not really, I mean, it's in there because it was written in there, but it's not, there's no force to it. It's not in effect anymore. The direct taxation they're talking about is tax or duty shall be laid in any articles exported from any state. That was back in Article 1, Section 9. If you guys remember any of that, or at least you know how to look it up now. So go back and look it up yourself. So questions on that? We're cruising through, man. We're going to be done before 9 here for sure.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm understanding that correctly. So am I to understand that essentially because of Article 5 and the way that was written, that in 1808, the 3/5 compromise was voided? Or am I?
No. Yep.
Yeah, in 1808, right. 1808 is when, and that's, if you remember, so Section 9, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 1 was the migration or importation of such persons of any state now existing shall think proper to admit shall not be prohibited by Congress prior to the year 1808, but a tax or duty may be imposed on such importation not exceeding $10 for each person. So that was all about the slave trade. In 1808, they banned the international slave trade. So you were not able to get slaves anymore. But up until then, they were still allowed to bring them in. They were still allowed to tax them, and they were still allowed to recoup the money that they had into this. But yeah, in 1808, Congress passed laws banning international slave trade.
Okay, so then did they start getting full credit for population at that point?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think they did until I don't know. The 13th Amendment in 65 is what stopped slavery in the country. My guess is, I mean, they were still slaves. Owning slaves was still legal. You just weren't allowed to import them anymore.
Right. They were grandfathered in. They couldn't bring in any new ones.
Right.
Yeah. I see the like it says right there on your screen. As a result, the 3/5 compromise contained in Article 1, Section 9 remained in place until 1808, when Congress banned international slave trade. So this is just interesting to me because the argument that I hear all the time is, you know, the country was founded on slavery and it's part of our Constitution and all this, and that's true. But they're missing that in the original ratified Constitution, they also put a timestamp on it and said, we're going to stop the slave trade and we're going to do, like, they literally, as they wrote it, were saying this is a compromise for now.
Brad, they didn't say that it stopped in 1808. They said you can't pass laws to change it until 1808.
And it was also the international slave trade. It was importing them in from, you know, Africa or wherever they come from. But as far as homegrown slaves, you know, you could have your slaves have babies and make them slaves still.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, slavery was still legal.
100%.
So, yeah.
I never realized this part was in there at all.
Well, and yeah, it is interesting because, like you said, they claim that the country was built on the back of slaves, which, I mean, I understand it, but when this thing was written, we were already trying to move ourselves away from the slave trade.
Right.
It took until the Civil War before we actually banned it in the country, but
yeah, they don't always talk about this in school
federally. So no, that's a good point. because I think they gave him 20 years or 20, whatever. So 18, so when were we? 1787.
Yeah, 21 years. 20.
Ratified this. So yeah.
Okay.
So cool. All right. And the final part is equal suffrage. All right. So what we have is and that no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. So what they were worried about here were amendments that were going to take the state's power away from them by taking senators away from the states. So obviously they were always concerned about losing representation to the federal government. This was included to protect the states until the 17th Amendment came along in 1913, and this was completely disregarded, and 17th Amendment's disgusting. But we'll talk about that when we get there. 17th Amendment, just I know some of you guys are probably going to look it up now, is where we went to the people voting for the state senators instead of the states being able to appoint their own senators, which is how it was supposed to work and which is how it was written to work. Remember the Senate is there to represent the states, and the House is there to represent the people. So when this thing started out, man, we were supposed to be electing our House representatives, and the state was going to appoint its own senators. 17th Amendment came along in 1913 and changed that to a popular vote for the state senators, which I think kind of screwed everything up, but we'll talk about that when we get there, I guess. So that's all that was. Questions on that? All right, so I don't have a lot written down for this. So that brings us to the Convention of States. And I think it's important, and a little bit outside the Constitution, but it obviously deals with Article 5. The Convention of the States, and if you go, it's conventionofstates.com, and you can join their email list. And actually, I wish I had looked at this earlier, and I didn't. I went today, and they are now offering a PDF file that they'll send you immediately that is basically the pocket guide to Article 5 for American citizens. And I was reading through it a little bit before I came here tonight, and it's really good. Answers a lot of questions, gives you a lot of talking points when you're out there talking with people you know. That was something new. I haven't seen that before. I wish I had seen it. It probably would have prepared me even more for tonight. But if you guys go there now to the conventionofstates.com or go tonight and just register, you can volunteer for them if you want to volunteer. You can just sign the petition, and you can, there's a lot on their website that'll answer your questions about the Convention of States, so that when you contact your state representatives, you know what you're talking about, and you don't sound foolish. So far, their most up-to-date numbers are that 15 states have actually passed the resolution. Remember, we're going to need 34 in order to call the convention. 8 have passed in one chamber of their legislature, though. So that puts us at 23. I mean, we're getting there. 9 states have active legislation. I think this is a pretty updated list because Ohio is showing no active legislation right now, and we did last year. So what happens is every year, I think it's every year. Is it every year or every 2 years? I think it's every year. Every year that they don't pass it, they got to start all over again the next year. Somebody has to bring it to the floor, and they got to vote on it, and they got to talk about it. And Ohio's been active in at least bringing it up every year, but I don't think we may have passed it in one chamber. We definitely have never been on board. We're not on board. There's only 15 states that are completely on board with this right now. What you need to do is contact your state reps. You need to go on the Convention of States. They'll have an interactive map there to see if you're already on board with this. I might have it here.
Hey, Jim, real quick question.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. For those that don't really know exactly what the Convention of States is, can you do a brief explanation?
Yeah. So what the Convention of States is, and it seems to be hold on real quick. I'm just trying to look it up. It seems to be the best one that I have found. They are a group of, there's senators involved. Mark Levin is part of it. And they are calling for, is it 3 things? Let me pull up their legislation real quick and I'll just read it to you. So the problem is that some of these, you'll find different organizations that want to call for convention of states, but they have too much stuff going on. They're just throwing so much shit out there that it's impossible for anything that they're going to do to get through. Whereas the convention of states is limited. And what they're doing is looking to propose amendments to the Constitution of the United States that impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, limit the power and jurisdiction of federal government, and limit the terms of office for its officials and for members of Congress. So everything they're looking to do is basically force them to balance the budget and impose fiscal restraints on them, and then term limits. That's all they're going after this first time. And I think that's the way to go. I think some of these other ones, they'll have 2 or 3 things like this, but one of them is so fucking outlandish. And I don't even remember what they are. You can look, you can Google it. But convention of states, this is what they want. They want to call a convention, a constitutional convention. And these are the only topics that they are going to propose. Fiscal restraints and term limits. So their progress map right now, Florida is on board. Florida has already passed.
You want me to share it? I have it up.
Yeah, if you want to share it, because I'm on Prezi, I can't see what you guys are sharing. Yeah, there it is. So, yeah, so you can see Florida's on board, Texas, you're on board. Ohio right now, there's no pending legislation at all, which we all out here in Ohio need to be contacting our state legislature and our state reps and letting them know that we want this introduced. Nathan Manning is on board with it. I don't know about the senators. I don't remember exactly who out here is on board. But if you email your reps and let them know that you want to get, you want this, but you got to follow up with them. You can't just send it once, and you can't send a foreign letter. I just don't think foreign letters are very well received. I know it's amazing, but California is not on board and New York's not on board, which is weird to me because you would think that they would have already passed it.
Well, they actually have people that are professionals working for this organization that will reach out. Once you reach out to them, they will give you talking points to talk to your legislators. They'll give you all kinds of guidance when you go to meet with them, so that it's not just a one and done deal.
Yeah, they do. But so many of your questions can be answered through Renee. There's if you can find it, there's a frequently asked questions, maybe at the bottom. Keep scrolling down.
Oh, Article 5 in a nutshell. This one.
Well, you know what? There was a video that I was going to play. If you want to play it.
Which one?
I ran into the same problem. Go back. Let me see, scroll up. Let me see if I can find it.
Okay.
It's their I'm finding myself trying to scroll on your screen.
Oh.
It's low. It's lower, lower.
Here?
Ah, man, it is.
Videos.
Try that. I'll know it when I see it.
That face that is usually covered by her
Application in
phone
2
has
minutes.
finally
That's not
made
it.
appearance.
So here it is.
You weren't staying at a verb.
The revolution is the video I tried to get to play.
Gives we the people the power to put the federal government.
But for some reason, I'm still having a problem with video on here.
Okay. If you send me the link.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. So is everybody, do you understand it? Do you understand what the Convention of States is trying to do here? You can get on with them.
But I'm really curious on the why. Not
What is that me
states on
playing?
board with this.
Yes, it is. Sorry.
Well, you know what, Renee, go to resources. Chris, what were you're interested on the why what?
Yeah, why aren't more states on board with this already?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I guess, I don't know, man.
Lack of awareness.
Yeah.
This one?
So under Resource Center,
Mhm.
Convention
Oh,
of
yeah,
States
I'm sorry,
Explained.
I'm not sharing, sorry.
If you go to Resource Center, the Convention of States Explained, maybe do
This
that
one.
one. Let's see. Yeah, let's see
Okay.
what that is. Maybe that'll
All right, hang
explain
on,
it a
let me-
little better than I'm doing.
Let me share with sound. Oh, it is, okay. Oh, hello. Am I sharing the right screen? And my screen.
A bloody revolution from
Guys.
Is that it?
The United States Constitution was written to form a more perfect union that would enable checks and balances to prevent a bloody revolution from being a necessary measure to abolish tyranny. Excellent though it was, Colonel George Mason feared the national government might one day end in a tyrannical aristocracy. The rights of the people needed to be secured against potential corruption at the national level. One of the solutions the framers decided upon can be found in Article 5, which gives state legislators the authority to call a convention that bypasses federal legislators to amend the Constitution. That gives we the people the opportunity to make some long overdue structural adjustments. Maybe term limits would be a good place to start. Here's how the process works. Citizens request their state legislators to pass a bill called an application with operative language identical in each state. These legislators of the states then pass the application. Generally, only a simple majority is needed. Congress shall, by law, call a convention of the states as soon as it receives applications from 2/3 of the state legislatures. That's 34 states. Delegates chosen by the state legislatures attend the convention. Each state only gets one vote at the convention, but they can send as many delegates to represent the state as they so choose. Amendments are proposed, debated, and voted upon at the convention. Finally, ratification takes place in the states. Each amendment must be ratified by 3/4 of the states in order to become part of the U.S. Constitution. But what about a runaway convention? Let's get a reality check. Like constitutional law scholar Robert G. Nadelson says, there are far more political and legal constraints on a runaway convention than on a runaway Congress. The convention delegates, also called commissioners, are bound to the will of their state legislatures. If they don't vote as their states demand, they get recalled. They might even get sent to prison. Furthermore, a full 3/4 of the state legislatures, we're talking 38 state legislatures, must ratify each and every amendment in order for it to become part of the U.S. Constitution. Even Alexander Hamilton and Abraham Lincoln, who favored national government, emphasized that Article 5 gives states authority over the national government. Hamilton writes that national rulers have no option upon the subject. The words of Article 5 are peremptory. The Congress shall call a convention. And Lincoln says the convention mode seems preferable in that it allows amendments to originate with the people themselves. Article 5 Convention of the States is a safe route to stopping federal overreach. Civilizations rise and fall. Let's be a civilization that saw the cycle of collapse coming and broke it.
Yeah, that, I think that probably explained it simpler and better than I could have, so good video. So questions on that? You guys get it? You understand why Chris, I don't know. I don't know the answer to your question as to why everybody's just not on board with this. Although
we're long overdue for that, I really believe. I mean,
ultimately though, I guess you're asking the states, they're still politicians, right? And a lot of these people still have higher hopes, and you're still asking the states to limit themselves. You're still asking them to limit politicians to terms. And I think that's where you have problems, man. And I just think that we need to get involved in this. They need to be reminded who they work for. And just if the what do we got here? If the 28 of us here were to call our state reps, nothing, right? They can ignore 28 of us all day long. But if we each bring in, 10 friends, now we're at 280 and they bring in 10 friends, and it gets a lot harder to be able to ignore us, and I think Jeff said it. I mean, that's just, it's a lack of awareness is why they're not going forward with this. But everybody needs to get involved. You at least need to get your addresses on there. Now, I will say too, that one of the problems with this, and I used to volunteer for them. I was in this district, and there's a lot of, when you're a volunteer, and it just took up so much of my time. But there's a lot of cold calling, right? We would get lists of everybody who logged on and left their email address. Everybody who joined, everybody who maybe they just wanted a copy of the PDF, but you got to enter your email address in order to get that copy of the PDF. And we'd get those email addresses. We'd get phone numbers, when people would actually sign up. And you would be calling these people, and a lot of these people were they were coming, they wanted to see the whole site and they wanted to see what it was about, but they think you're crazy, right? They think like you're almost like you're anti-government, like you're taking on the government. I mean, some of the comments I got from people were just insane, yelling at me to never call them again, that, they're true patriots, or it was just weird. And then you try to explain and you're like, wait a minute, man. I mean, if you're a true patriot, then this is what you need to be involved in. And they just didn't get it. So, and I think the Convention of States doing a good job getting their message out, but you can only get your message out to people that are logging on to get your message. You know what I mean? It's going to take us talking to our friends and talking to our neighbors and telling people, look, there's a solution to this, but this is what you got to do. You got to get uncomfortable for a little bit. You got to write letters. You got to talk to your people. So I think that's it. I mean, I think that's the problem. Nobody wants to get uncomfortable. Everybody wants the problem fixed, but nobody wants to get uncomfortable to do it.
Hey, Jim, can you hear me?
Yep.
So I wrote Gail Manning about this back in February of last year.
Okay.
And her answer to the convention, I basically told her I was a constituent of hers and I was really interested in the state of Ohio getting involved with the COS, and this is her response to me. Thank you for your email regarding a convention of state resolution. I appreciate your thoughts as they are important to me. Senator Huffman recently filed SJR2, which is an application to Congress for a convention of states under Article 5 of the Constitution of the United States. While a similar resolution has yet to be introduced in the House, I will be certain to keep your thoughts in mind and share them with my fellow members. If I have an opportunity to vote on SJR2, I will certainly keep your thoughts in mind. Blah, blah, blah. Thank you. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So there has been at least a SJR2 application in the Ohio Senate filed within the last.
Well, yeah, no, I think, you know what, John, I think every year we are at least blue every year where we are talking about it. I think their latest numbers is just so early on right now. I don't think it's been brought up yet, but every year we're talking about it. I just don't know if we've ever gotten to the point where we've passed at least one chamber. Do you know?
I don't know that, honestly. My guess is no, but I mean, I would imagine that Senator Brown and the House members, and I would imagine they have so much influence on our local state reps that they're really afraid to try to push this through. It would have to be such an uprising amongst the citizens.
Okay, and I guess that's what I'm saying, right? It needs to be an uprising. It's not up to Senator Brown if he's going to try to shut this thing down. You know what I mean? And I know that's exactly what you mean. I understand exactly what you're saying. But the problem is that these people forget who they work for, and they need to be reminded. It's not up to him. It's up to us. And if we want it, then you know what? Senator Brown's not reelecting these guys. We're reelecting them. And if we all demand that we want this to happen and it doesn't happen, then they don't get reelected.
The craziest thing to me is that, I know all know someone on the opposite side of the aisle that, I mean, I'm obviously a very conservative person. My
No.
daughter-in-law is as opposite of me as she could possibly be. And yet we can only agree on one thing politically, and that's term limits for Congress, because she hates Mitch McConnell and all of them just as much as I hate Nancy Pelosi and all of them. And there's one thing that we can agree on as a convention of states and term limits, yet we can't organize to get it together, man. And it's so frustrating. I've seen polls where 85% of citizens agree on term
Right.
limits for Congress.
Well, and I think here's part of the problem is if you were to go to her right now and talk to her about this convention of states, she will immediately assume this is a conservative movement, right? And then that's it. You're going to get shut down. She's not going to tell her Democratic friends, and I'm as guilty. I mean, you know, if my sister were to come to me and tell me about something, I'm immediately going to assume that it's, you know, instead of looking at it, probably immediately assume it's some kind of Democratic initiative. So, I mean, I guess we got to figure out a way to get past that and to bring everybody in. And that was one of the things when I volunteered for them, you know, when we'd start talking about it, I would never ask anybody where they stood on the aisle. You know, I would tell them, look, I don't care if you are a hardcore leftist or if you're a hardcore conservative. It doesn't matter to me because this is an American issue, right? I don't want to know. I don't care how you voted last time. But here's the thing, like you said, I mean, the Democrats hate McConnell. Well, I hate McConnell. A lot of us hate McConnell. But you know, the Democrats hate Jim Jordan, right? And we hate Maxine Waters. I mean, it's just we all, like you said, we all have something in common here that we all want them turned out. But I don't know. And we're so divided right now. But nothing's going to happen until you guys start talking to your states. Got to talk to the states about it. Article 5 is the way to fix this country, for sure. And George Mason was absolutely spot on. George Mason is the reason that the section about the states being able to call the Constitutional Convention was put in there.
I really think the one way it's going to take a few famous people with huge platforms that 1 million people listen to on Twitter and on social media.
Well, listen, man, there's already some huge, I mean, you look at Mark Levin's following. Mark Levin is 100% on board and talks about it all the time. I mean, there is
I think the movement on the conservative side is a lot stronger than on the other side, honestly.
Oh, I think it is. I mean, yeah, it is. It's ridiculously stronger.
And I think there's so many people who are passionate about politics on the other side. Obviously, we've seen that, but they're leaders and they're people who speak up, and that they just don't have any knowledge of this, or for whatever reason don't choose to try to rally people around this. And that's I think once you get both sides and people of influence pushing this, I think it'll be a avalanche. Like, this is something that, you know, could go really quickly if the right people pushed it.
So,
well, and also you have a lot of people out there who have this same feeling towards it, but they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They don't know who to talk to. But if you ask anybody about it, they're going to say, oh yeah, we're on board. And then it stops there with them because they don't know the next steps. They don't know who they have to talk to, who they have to reach out to
well, you know, like Kathy said, once you sign up on this site, if it's working like it's supposed to work and they don't have lazy people there, they will reach out to you. They will reach out to you and see where you stand with this. They'll try to get you to volunteer, and you can volunteer as little or as much as you want. But you got to get registered with their site, and they'll keep you up to date. You'll be getting emails. You got to check in with their site. It's important. But you say big names. I mean, looking right now at who's on board with them right now. And it's a lot of conservatives. You got Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, Charlie Kirk, Rand Paul, James O'Keefe, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he's on board with it. Lawrence Jones, Greg Abbott. I mean, the list goes on. Sean Hannity, Ben Sass, big Ben Carson, Sarah Palin, Huckabee, Marco Rubio. These guys have all signed on with
Right,
it.
but they're all Republican conservatives.
They
And
are.
they're all
So-
politicians also. I'm
Well,
talking
and this is not all of them.
celebrities and
Not
stuff.
all of them. Yeah. Well, they,
Get going, and you need
but
to
you
get
need
Oprah.
you need the big names. Now, I guess that's where I was going to go with this. Is the problem is now that once you get the Democrats that log on here and they're like, well, what's this all about? And it's nothing but a conservative love fest. It's tough to bring them into the fold.
Well, I mean, it's all about messaging, and I honestly believe that they need better marketing. Honestly, I do. Because it shouldn't be about who's signed up and who's on board and everything else. It should be a communication about what this is and how you can make a difference.
Oh, it should be 100%. But I understand what they're trying to do too. You get somebody
I
like
do,
Mark
but-
Levin. Mark Levin has a following that whatever Mark Levin says is gold.
Well, for people that like Mark Levin, yeah.
Right. But that's what I mean, that's where you get those famous people and you're bringing people into the fold automatically just because Mark Levin said, you know what I mean?
Right, but we're trying to get the people on the other side of the aisle to the
Well, you
earlier
are. And then you got Mark
conversation.
Levin screaming at him that they're a bunch of idiots on his radio show. So
Right.
it's tough to.
Well, I think one of the big problems, right, anytime a conservative says something, even if it makes sense, the right doesn't own the media. The left does. So if anything the right says, the left won't allow it to go viral. The president can't tweet. They just took off James O'Keefe off of Twitter. So like these are the kinds of things that as much advertising and stuff that we would like to push, it just won't go anywhere.
Gotta watch the politics.
No, but I agree. If you want to get a convention of the states, you need both sides to come together on that. You need to get Oprah behind it, and Ellen, and some late night talk show hosts. I mean, as soon as those hit the airwaves, you'll get a lot more popular support.
Glenn Greenwald.
Who?
Who's that?
Glenn Greenwald.
I don't know.
The
I'm not-
singer?
No, he's a liberal journalist who was shunned out of his own job and fired a couple of months ago because he wasn't politically correct enough.
Where was he? Was he with the Times?
No, he was with he started the company. Renee, can you look it up? Glenn Greenwald.
I've seen a few of these. A few of these stories where they're starting to eat their own now.
Right. But I mean, he has a huge following.
Well, all right. So it's 9:05. I think we've covered this pretty well. Questions on this? Questions on Article 5? You guys understand what Article 5 says? You understand where you need to go now to get involved in this?
10 opinion writers of Newsweek. Let's see, by Newsweek.
The Guardian.
He led the Guardian reporting.
Yeah. You need to see it in Time Magazine and TV Guide and stuff like that. That's where you're going to get people that are somewhat apathetic to pay attention.
No.
Yeah, but the problem is people that run that
Right,
are
that's-
buddy with
Right.
congressmen who don't want that information publicized.
So,
Bill
All right.
Gates, he's a rebel.
well, fairly
so-
good meeting.
Here we.
What's that?
All right.
Oh,
We
that's
done?
Jody. I said we had a Zoom user. I was trying to figure out who it was. It's Jody.
Oh, all right. Yeah, man, good meeting. I mean, I love
Yeah.
Article 5, man. I do. And without us having to
Could be
do Article
bigger.
5, I would have never uncovered all these constitutional amendments about getting rid of the army. and income tax. And I need to find more of these. I'm going to read 15 of these every meeting now. These are fantastic. All right. Well, good deal. If nobody has any more questions, we move on. We got Article 6, and really we're done at that point. Article 7 is just the ratification. We're done with the articles, and then we get into the amendments. So we should breeze through most of those pretty quick. But I thought we were going to breeze through Article 1 pretty quick. Article 1 only took us 3.5 years to get through. So, all right, well, good enough. I'll see you guys here shortly.
Renee, you gonna post the link?
Yep, I was just getting ready to.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
All right, see you guys.